I'll give another tip. So lightning rod, I've talked about lightning rods before. And the idea of a lightning rod are monsters that are placed in big battles that are designed to fit what a character's capabilities are. There's really two types of lightning rods. It's pretty straightforward on what the types of lightning rods are. But an example is if you have a player who just loves, hey, I've got a cleric and I have turn undead and I love using it. You always throw lots of low-level undead so that they can cast turn and blow them away. If you have like a wizard who loves casting fireball, you have a bunch of creatures that attack in a perfect 20-foot radius that have fewer hit points than like the minimum roll of a fireball. Like, give them like 12 or 14 hit points. That way you're putting a bunch of monsters in place. And then an example for somebody like this, where they like to tank big monsters, you put big monsters in there who have big devastating attacks, but miss. But maybe they don't attack that often. Maybe they only have like 2. But this character can tank them and likes to be missed, likes to be attacked and missed a lot. Now, the truth is there's really only 2 kinds of lightning rods. There's great big single big monsters and lots of little monsters. That if you have single big monsters, and I mean not single, but like a handful, a small number of big monsters, they hit a bunch of different things. A single big monster is easy to crowd control with something like Banish or Polymorph or Hypnotic Pattern, any of the things that sort of take them out of commission. It's good for that. They're good to tank. Again, if you have a character who loves to have a high armor class, they can run up and they can essentially immobilize a creature by having it constantly attack them, and it misses all the time. Those are really the 2 big advantages, the big ones. And then you have lots of little guys, and that's basically all of the widespread crowd control, your sleep spells, your hypnotic pattern spells, and your big area damage spells, your fireballs and your lightning bolts. When you're doing a boss fight, a good model for a boss fight is a mixture of like normal guys that are basically 1-to-1 with the number of characters. So like if there are 6 characters, there are 6 of these guys. Then 4-to-1 or 6-to-1 of a bunch of small dudes. And then usually 1 for every 2 characters for great big dudes. Maybe even 1 for every 3 characters, depending on how many you may have. Make them bigger. And then have a boss, right? And if you have that 4 stages, that 4-stage battle, it gives everybody a lot of things to do. You would not want to put all of those variants in there if you don't have characters who can handle them. An example is, let's say you don't have anybody that's particularly good at crowd control. They don't use Fireball, they don't use Wall Fire, they don't use any of the big crowd control spells. Well, then you probably don't do a lot of little dudes because they're just going to be sitting there. Same way, if you don't have anybody that's doing a lot of crowd control, you might not want to have those great big guys, or maybe fewer of those great big guys. You can look at like who the characters are and what kind of creatures that they like to face. Put those guys in. And boss fights are the perfect place to do that, because boss fights are great for waves of monsters. They are great for big set piece battles. And it's okay, in my opinion, boss fights are like where you run and manipulate the situation as much as possible, because you definitely have like a feeling that you want to have with a boss fight. A boss fight wants to feel a certain way. You don't want to be boring. You don't want it to be hopeless. You want this, in the boss fight, you want ups and downs and ups and downs. And waves are a way to do that. The down is you get attacked by a bunch of dudes. The up is you beat those guys. The down is another wave comes. The upbeat is you have the right tools to defeat that. Then another, so you're doing these up and downward beats throughout the battle. And you can do role playing, and you can have the environment shift, and you can do all this other stuff. When you want to have your hands on the dials, the boss fights like this are really where you want your hands on the dials.